Sometimes we are just so close to our problems that we can't see the forest through the trees. Everything seems so big and right up in our face. However, if we shift our perspective even just a little bit, or go high, as I like to say, you start to see things differently, and now there's space for real creative problem solving. Today, I'm speaking with Amy Dickinson, who, through her correspondence with her readers, encourages them to reframe their problems and adjust their perspective a tiny bit to help them become the best versions of themselves. This conversation was truly lovely, and I am so happy to share it with you. And as a side note, we talked about Abbott Elementary, and at the time of the interview, I had not seen it, and I know, I was definitely behind the pop culture 8-ball with this one. But since then, I have watched them all, and yes, it is a great show, and if you haven't seen it, make sure you watch Abbott Elementary. When you're done listening to this episode, 24 Ways to Find Calm in Your Busy World is now available to podcast listeners for free at empowereducator.com/ebook. Here you will find 24 ways to feel more ease and joy by noticing all of the things that are all around you that are usually out of sight. I did all the work for you, and it's yours for free. So download your copy today at empowereducator.com/ebook. Remember all the passion and vision you had when you first went into teaching? Feeling like building young minds and creating community through your work would make a lasting impact on this world? Well, those days may feel like they're behind you now because you're exhausted, stressed, and overwhelmed and frustrated, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be like this. In fact, the love of teaching never really went away, but it absolutely needs transformation. Welcome to the Take Notes podcast. I'm Jen Rafferty, former music teacher, mom of 2, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, and I'm here to light the way for you. In order to create a generational change for our kids, we need to shift the paradigm away from the perpetual stress and overwhelm and into a life of joy and fulfillment. This is Education 2.0, where you become the priority, shift how you live your life, and how you show up both at work and at home. So take a sip of steamy morning coffee and grab your notebook. It's time to take notes. Hello, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Take Notes. I'm here with an incredible guest. This is Amy Dickinson, who, of course, writes the syndicated advice column Ask Amy, which is carried in over 150 newspapers and read by an estimated 22 million readers daily. She's also the author of the New York Times bestselling memoir, The Mighty Queens of Freeville, a story of surprising second chances, and Strangers Tend to Tell Me Things. She is known not only for her wisdom, but her wit. And since 2006, she has been a featured panelist on National Public Radio's comedy quiz show, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And she is also a sought-after speaker, delivering her inspiring and comic stories of her adventures and misadventures to groups around the country. And after living in New York, London, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, she moved back to her hometown in central New York, married a local contractor she had known since childhood, and is now mother to 5 daughters. Hi, Amy.
Hey, Jen. Boy, that's crazy. You know, when you hear your bio read out loud, it's like, whoa, did I do all that? Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Although I have to say, like we were just saying before we recorded, you did leave something out that was very important. Very talented alto.
Thank you. And thank you for recognizing when I sang for your choir. Thank you for recognizing. I love this one session where you pointed out how different, like the stereotypical soprano is a certain way. And I really love that. It's sort of like when you first discover that you really do match your sign of the zodiac. I was like, oh yeah, I'm such an alto. Oh my God.
Yeah. And for those listening who are not musicians, go ask your musician friends and ask them what we are talking about with, sopranos have like certain personality that is fully me. And like you're a solid alto, Amy.
Well, I'm very into harmony.
Yes. And so for some context, I had directed an intergenerational choir in Freeville, and it's a beautiful organization. Honestly, I think when we talk about lifelong learning, for me as a music teacher for so long, that choir was the missing piece for me because we spend the 10 months of the year teaching the K-12 kids, and then it stops. And for me, that intergenerational choir, having kids as young as 8, right? 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Coming in with 3 generations sometimes of families or people in their 90s coming to sing.
Jen, in that choir, I sat next to a 94-year-old woman who had been my teacher in high school. That's incredible. And, for me, as glorious as it always is to work with children and sing with children and watch children and enjoy children, for me, the elders, it was all about them. I don't know. It was such a special experience. Somebody should make a film about it. And can I just say, just this week, I got a question for my advice column. I couldn't believe it. It was from this mega grouch who said, "What do you think about this, Amy? I was at a community band concert and a baby was crying, disrupting, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, I literally, Jen, I pushed up my sleeves and I was like, okay, I'm going in. Because, of course, the whole idea around groups like this is the idea of community. And I loved the way I ended this. The person gave me a rant. I sort of gave them a rant in return. And the way I ended it was basically reflecting that a lot of us have been shut in for a long time and we're out and about and the world is noisy. And that, in my opinion, it would be great if this person could see babies as making beautiful music.
Yes. Isn't that interesting? Good timing.
Yeah. And I know you do this in your work. How often it helps to just reframe, just adjust your perspective a tiny, tiny bit. And that's not to scold this person who wrote to me, but just to try to inspire that person and other people to think for a second, like, well, wait a minute, that noise is all about humanity. It's about it being a human, being in a community. I mean, the irony that this person kept going on about this community. I said, yes, this baby is part of your community,
Yes, sure. Well, and I think this is a nice segue into some of the things I wanted to ask you today about. A lot of what you do in your advice column is about reframe.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Can you talk a little bit more about what that means for you and how people can actually get into this elevated perspective of what their situation is so they can be in a place to even think about a reframe?
Some of it has to do with compassion. As I get older, I was in a rough patch in my own life where one of our daughters got pregnant in high school and I was in a brand new marriage and I freaked out. I just lost my perspective completely. I was so overwhelmed. And I really did some deep thinking about really reflecting on my reaction to this because I wanted to, despite my reaction, I wanted to behave well. I wanted to model good behavior. And so I did a lot of really deep thinking and just tried to center more on my compassion. I think it doesn't always come naturally. And I just tried to imagine this girl in this household and what she might be going through. And I really started to alter my perspective. And what I've learned is that if you just shift it a tiny bit, I mean, some of the old cliches like walk around in somebody else's shoes, those things actually can help to just change your perspective even slightly. I have a friend who visualizes it by she puts her hands up in front of her face like a little signpost and then boop, shifts it just 5 degrees. It can make such a huge difference. And now as I get older, I've been doing the column now for 20 years and I feel like my own perspective has shifted and I am much more compassionate in my column. Despite the scoldings, I occasionally feel compelled to offer. And I urge people to reframe. And I do something that I know you and your sister were modeling in one of your podcast episodes, which is I provide for readers a script. A lot of times people, they don't know what to say. Now, I think actually they don't know how to feel. And sometimes if I give them a little script, it can urge a person into feeling a certain way. You and your sister talked a lot about something like how to apologize. I love this too. I do this a lot. How to have a difficult conversation. And the suggestion to I've suggested this in my column many times. I've done this I suggested it in my column. Then I thought, oh, now I have to do it. I hate that.
Take that advice, right?
Yeah. Starting a conversation by saying, this is hard for me. I'm not sure if the words are going to come out right. Just hang in there with me. And I just hope that we can talk and come to an understanding. But just starting by acknowledging that something is difficult or challenging, I think that can really help.
Sure. And that requires vulnerability, which I think people are not comfortable with because it doesn't feel safe for people to feel comfortable. And there are tons of ways that I can go with some of the things that you were saying, but I want to stay here for a little bit and talk about this script because it is really important. Because even in psychology, we talk about like heuristics of you get into a certain situation and your mind kind of plays something out for you of the way you think it's supposed to go based on what you've seen before. But if you're in a situation where you want to make a new choice, you don't have a script anymore. It's off the books. And so having something as simple as a reframe for the situation and kind of a guidebook is a beautiful way to start having that conversation. And transparency for me is always the best way through because then you're talking person to person.
Always.
And not problem to problem. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I have found that it's interesting. You came at this, or you do come at this from an academic level. It's funny when I started sort of doing little scripts for people, suggesting, here's what you can say in your condolence note. Here's how to apologize. I was shocked that none of the advice columnists I grew up reading ever did that. And I think it's because I got the job after a very long career as a writer, and writers write their way out of things. So for me, scripting came very, very naturally. So it was less an academic or cerebral approach and more of a, I'm going to write your way out of this pickle.
Yeah. And it ends up getting to the same result, which is super cool because at the end of the day, I think we need a rule book. We need some guideposts because when we're walking into uncharted territory, which is, I imagine, where most people are when they write to you and reach out to you, I don't know what to do here. I'm feeling lost. I need some guidance. Having that script and that guidebook at least is essential for them to at least feel a little bit of safety as they walk into the unknown.
Also, people really, really crave validation, and they write to me and they want, when I choose to publish their question, they most often want to know if their issue is legitimate. The dude with the crying baby, not legitimate. But yeah, so they want to know if the dilemma or the conflict they're facing is legitimate. And I think they want to do something about it. Some of the questions I get involve long-standing estrangements, for instance, in a family. And I feel like by the time somebody writes to me, they're inspired to some sort of action. They actually want to do something.
Yeah. And then they reach out and then we get the, yes, you're on the right path, or maybe think about it this way.
Right. I mean, I think each of us wants to be seen, to feel seen. And I really believe that that's an important aspect of the work that I do in my advice column, is to see somebody and validate, sometimes legitimize their issue, sometimes disagree with it. Rarely suggest that anyone walk away because, like I said, I feel like often these people are at a nexus point where they are inspired to try to do something.
And so when you're in a position to give somebody advice, whether it's in a column or whether you're a principal or an administrator or a guidance counselor or someone who's just in a position where people go to, you had said earlier that the best place to come from is compassion-based. And you also said you want to be able to honor your feelings. You didn't use these words. And also knowing that you do want to have good behavior in this, right? So there's some sort of like moral compass also that you're using here. I think that especially now, a lot of people are confused as to like where north is on that moral compass. Would you agree?
Yes.
And so I'd love for you to talk about that, because that I think is a lot of the root of where some of this conflict lies when we're just looking through this lens of our own moral compass.
Yeah. when I was much younger, as a child and as a young adult, and in my early days in a career in broadcasting, I've always been very outgoing, very mouthy, quite the wit, sarcastic, all of it. I've just always been out there with my comebacks. And I have learned as I've gotten older, the power of, well, first of all, behavior is vital. And I don't know if children are really learning, no, they are learning how important behavior is. I think sometimes as we adults, we forget how important our behavior is. In my experience, there's a lot that you can't take back. So I do believe that there's a right way to behave. And I also feel really strongly that sometimes, and this is hard for someone like me, doing more listening is vital. And to, as my mother used to say, your big mouth is going to get you into trouble someday. I don't want to ever make things worse for someone else. I definitely don't want to make things worse for me. And so I've really learned, I've had to concentrate on being quieter, a better listener. And that's been incredibly valuable in terms of my own behavior. And yes, I do believe that there's a right and a wrong. I mean, I am somebody who I receive huge volumes of mail, email, Twitter, like on social media, huge volumes. And I used to be very thin-skinned, and I get a lot of, I wouldn't call it hate mail as much as, people can disagree with me. That I've always felt like that is what makes the column robust, is like, oh, you're mixing it up a little bit. But I receive a lot of really hateful messages, and I just take it. And they're always from a lot of time from elderly people. Really, some awful stuff has come my way from elderly people. And I don't know if there's a filter that's disappearing or what. But I do think that we've lost our compass a little bit. And it has to do with, I grew up on a dairy farm in a really small town. And if I was out and about as a child and I put a foot wrong, I remember once I was riding my bike down the wrong side of the street. I was riding facing traffic. And the next Sunday at church, a woman at church who lived nearby mentioned that to me. And I was like 9 years old. And I'm like, dang, I can't even excuse me. I'm being spied on and corrected. But I really had the benefit of growing up in a community where adults would give you a quiet correction, a gentle correction. And I think that is incredibly valuable. And I don't know, one of our daughters just moved into this massive subdivision in Orlando, and I think it's going to work out great. But the first thing, we just went to visit, and the first thing I was looking for was, are there bikes in the garage? Are there people out walking on the sidewalk? I want this family to be in a community where people know who they are, where if the kids, I have 2 grandchildren, if they go astray, if they're on the wrong side of the road, whatever, if somebody can gently offer them some direction. I think that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also comes back to what you were saying at the beginning too, of just compassion, that I think really that kind of guides our moral compass, is this idea of human connection through compassion, where when you see someone, a child, not doing something that is safe or inappropriate, that just out of humanity, you can quietly correct, because that's a way that we can elevate together. And I think people have shied away from that because it all of a sudden seems very scary and make comments on someone else's behavior.
Jen, absolutely. And this is the thing about living in a small place, because these people know your parents. But no, I think that a lot of people wouldn't dare offer a correction to it. And in fact, I get a lot of letters about this, about other people's children. Can you correct them when they're at your house? And the answer is yes.
Yes, I say yes to that.
Yeah. And frankly, some of my experiences as a child, some of my best experiences happened at other people's homes because I was in the situation in my household was it was on the edge. Our farm was failing. My father left. It was like pretty sad and lonely sometimes. But I had these girlfriends and I went to their houses, especially my one friend. Her parents were just such great models they were so nice to each other. They were really, really into children. And I still know these people and I'm close to them. And I've told them many times how influential their household was for me. It gave me a way to look at things that felt positive, reassuring. But no, people don't want to do that. You know what I liked about teaching that I'm aware of with children now? Teachers talk a lot about kindness. Jen, when I was in elementary school, you didn't talk about kindness. You weren't praised for being kind. You really weren't. And I think that's an incredibly positive, very positive and fairly recent style. I don't know. Children are, I think, encouraged to understand their feelings more than we when I was young, it was like, stuff it down. It'll go away, you know?
What feelings?
Yeah, well, and it's so important. And because when children grow up recognizing that they have feelings, they then learn to manage them, to modulate them. And I think that's where compassion grows.
Yes. And as you're saying this, I just want to underscore what you're saying because it is really important. And being in the classroom as some of these like kindness initiatives are coming up, it's like very easy as an adult in the space to feel cynical and jaded about it, right? Because you're doing all of these things and all of a sudden, oh, now there's going to be this kindness campaign, this like other thing I need to do.
Right.
Right. And to go back to this shifting of your paradigm a little bit and this reframe this is actually something that is an opportunity that you get to practice yourself as an adult, because let's be honest, the kids are not learning to be kind by getting blue ribbons of how kind they were at the end of the week. They're really watching the adults in these spaces and seeing how is this playing out. Because even as you were describing your story about your friend's house, you were describing what you observed, not the number of compliments you got for how kind you were at their house. It's, what am I experiencing? What is the culture like? So these kindness campaigns or whatever social emotional program you might have in your school is not just about the kids. This is about having an opportunity for you as the adult in these spaces to embody the practices, which is then how we teach the kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I assume that these campaigns are met with a lot of cynicism in the break room.
Sure. They are.
Oh, yeah. But I will say, as an observer and as a grandparent, and I spend a lot of time around children, it's working. I think it really, really matters. I spent some time at my little village school where I went to school, and I've done some literacy programs there. And I'm really very impressed by how kind the children are to each other, to me. Honestly, when you time travel back, right? If you're an adult, I mean, have you ever taught in your own elementary school?
I have not.
Okay, Jen, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Because you had the smells. You're like, oh, the principal's coming around the corner. Like, you have all of the feelings that you had as a child and all of these feelings and impulses as a child. And I assure you, so being in the exact same space and teaching, I assure you, we were never as well-behaved, considerate, and kind as these children were. We were like, what? It was like crazy. So I like it.
Yes. And I think that's the thing, right? Like we have to start with the adults in the spaces because like you said, it is working in the places that really embrace this idea. Even before the kids get out of the car, when I drop them off in the morning, it's like, bye, I love you. Have a good day. Be kind. And at night too, at our dinner table, we do some gratitude sharing or whatever, but it's like, how are you kind today? And keeping that at front of mind is really, really important. And I really do think that's how then we kind of move that needle back to true north of this moral compass.
Right. Being kind is different from being nice. When I was a kid,
we're taught to be nice.
Yeah, you were taught to be nice. And oftentimes being nice, I mean, it's just on a whole different level. Being nice, it means you're being accepted by the group. I don't know, it has a different quality. Kindness has a very deep quality. And for instance, I mean, when I was your children's age, no one ever mentioned kindness to me. And I grew up in despite what I said about my own household, it was a really cool, fun. I had an amazing mother who was like very, very, very dialed in, but the conversations were not about that. It was more about winning.
Yeah. Yes. Tell me more about that because that resonates with me.
Yeah. Just the importance of winning. And that's another thing that seems very different to me from now is the model we had was sports, music. I participated in everything. And that was your venue to express yourself. And winning at that, at whatever I was doing, it was certainly important to me to feel like I was winning. And by winning, I mean excelling. I can't remember ever being praised for a good effort, but lots of accolades for excelling.
That resonates a lot. And I'm thinking too now with this shift in this direction of kindness and what even you were saying before is people want to feel validated, right? A lot of times that validation comes with what we call like achievements. Like, what are we achieving? How many like good job, Jens? How many A's did I get? How many gold stars? For me as a performer too, it's did the audience applaud? Did they applaud loud enough? Did they give me a standing ovation? What did the critics say, the next day in the paper? Those sort of external validations of things were metrics of, like you said, it was like winning and achievements. And that is what I thought was really important. And truly, until COVID kind of like squashed everything about everyone's reality, but particularly mine, because we're talking about me right now, I had to reframe what being successful actually looked like and felt like. And what I found was the metrics that I really wanted to start using was my connections with people and how I felt, because like achieving didn't always feel good.
Well, when you look back, as I seem to be doing a lot in this conversation, I said this to one of my nephews recently who had just graduated from college, and someone was ragging on him about his grades. And I was like, dude, I am here to tell you, no one will ever ask you what grade you got in that class. It's never going to happen. But what I did say, pivoting back to you, is that for me, certainly the college experience, in fact, because I live in my hometown, the whole educational experience was about connecting and feeling safe as a child to connect with other children, other families. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And you look as a musician, I mean, if you're rehearsing hours a day and then look, I'm on this live radio show we perform before a large audience, sometimes huge audience, sometimes it's huge. Okay, here's a story about winning. The second time I was on the show as a new panelist, I spoke with a producer and I said, I just don't feel like, I don't feel like I'm doing very well. She said, why is that? And I said, well, I'm like not winning the quiz. And she was like, are you kidding me with this? She said, Amy, this is not about winning the game. The idea, she said, I'll never forget. She said, look at what Paula Poundstone does. She has literally never won. She lights herself on fire before she goes down. And if you are brave enough to go down in flames, you are going to love doing this and they're going to love you. What a lesson.
Yes. And so how did you then go into your next show? What changed for you?
What changed was I decided to have a lot more fun, less focused. And because it's a trivia show, I had gone in sort of wanting to ace the quiz. And what I realized was the most enjoyable parts for the audience is it's like on SNL when people break. And the most fun for the audience is when you're ad-libbing, when you're laughing, and another thing, I think I am unique as a panelist on this show for what I do. I am very, very generous to the other performers. I laugh because it's all stand-up comedians and me. I'm like, I have a day job.
That's funny.
I'm funny enough, but I'm not a professional comedian. But stand-up comics, you get them together in a group and they're not going to laugh at your bit. I feel like I have a pass because I'm not a stand-up comic. And I think I'm generous as a performer. I really enjoy what other people are doing and let them have the spotlight and let them win. Yeah, it's fine. It's all about like having fun. It's an audience experience. I love it when the audience, I mean, it's so much fun. It's a radio show, Jen, that people come to watch. And we're like, you could just listen for free this weekend, but they pay money and they come to watch. And it's a really glorious experience performing like that. It's wonderful.
Yeah. I think that is a really beautiful lesson, right? I mean, when you stop thinking about the outcome and the end results and you're just in the moment, having fun, being authentic, that's when the magic happens. Whether you're on stage or in the classroom or at home with your partner, that's it.
Jen, dare to fail. We need t-shirts.
Let's do it. Because at the end of the day, there's really no such thing.
Right. And it's like, I think you or your sister quoted this in a previous episode, that it's like the person who's thinking the most about you is you. Other people, like you're in your head night and day. The stakes, and that's another thing that really helped me, honestly, in my career, in my personal life, understanding what the stakes are, having a clear view of what the stakes are. Sometimes the stakes are very, very big. Lots of times they're not. And so when the stakes are low, I permit myself to fail with grace, light myself on fire, trip over the sidewalk. I just allow myself to be human in that way. And I really started enjoying my fails a lot more.
You just reminded me of something too, because whether we're on stage or whether and for me, I experienced this even more, even with my experience as a performer, I felt this more as a role as being a teacher of this performativity of what I had to show up as, because I thought I created this persona for myself based on what I thought other people expected of me. Right. And so what happened was I would pretzel myself into something that was so uncomfortable, but on the outside, I looked put together. I looked like I knew all of the things I needed to know. Like, you want someone solid, go to Jen. But what happened was, and yeah, of course I was dependable and reliable, but all of that stuffing inside of me was so uncomfortable, is the only word I can think of to really describe that. And until I had that moment where my world imploded during COVID, and I realized that actually coming to the same conclusion, which was what you just described as my faults, my missteps, my humanity, my mistakes are actually part of the process. And in sharing it and being transparent is actually how I'm able to make more connections to people, because it's real.
Right. It's real. I mean, when I get praise for my books or my column or whatever, it's often in those terms and when people meet me in person at a book event, they'll often tell me that they like my work because I'm so real. I've written 2 memoirs, nothing tragic. I just put it out there about, for instance, crying on the bus for a year after my divorce. I still cry about my divorce, by the way, and it was like 30 years ago. But I've come to realize that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with their own humanity, their own reality. I'm like, oh, I'm not writing about anything that I can't own. There's a lot of stuff I don't want to own. I probably won't write about, but being out in the world and being a bumbling, stumbling human is honestly, I didn't realize people thought that was brave, but it's a kind of bravery that I like.
Yeah. And it's way more fun.
Yeah, way more fun.
It's way more fun. Yeah. And to get into community with people who also recognize their own humanity, we get to actually have fun with that together. And in my world, that's what my hope is for everybody, to just wake up to their own humanity so we can do this without all the pretense and get back to really that compassionate connection to each other so we can all be human and stumble through.
Jen, can I ask you, as an educator, this is silly maybe, but what do you think about the show Abbott Elementary?
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
I want to know, what do you think about Abbott Elementary?
I think it's really amazing because a lot of the qualities you and I have been talking about today are on full display with the teachers at that school. The main character is this sort of Liz Lemon, like
Love Liz Lemon.
It's so endearing because you really see how brave it is to be out there. And I think how good it is for children to see adults being real, making mistakes and then cleaning up their mistakes. And I just think it's all of the teachers it's an incredibly positive show about early education. It's wonderful.
Well, I will be starting that tonight. Thank you, because I needed something to watch tonight. I ended my my other TV shows. So new series starts tonight. I'll be binging that one. Yeah, I need to ask you, of course, the question that I ask everybody at the end of the podcast is, what is your dream for the future of education?
As a parent of 5 and a grandparent, I guess I would like to see education opened up, if that makes any sense. For instance, I'm very happy to see that standardized testing is less, at the college level, the SATs a lot of colleges aren't looking at that. And to really educate the whole child, look at the whole child, teach pro-social behavior, get children into community. Yeah, this is what I want to see. That's what I want to see. You know, Jen, when I went to my little elementary school, talk about this time travel experience, I said to them, they had been primed. They were like, a really famous writer is going to come, blah, blah, blah. So I went in and I said, okay, I have something incredible to tell you. And they're like, what? And I said, I went to this school. And they were like, oh. I then understood, children's book authors love doing school events. I see why. These kids were so thrilled. But anyway, my choice to sort of reveal that in a way, like I really made them pay attention. There was this buildup and then I told them and they were floored. So yeah, that's connection. That's connection.
It really is. That's beautiful. And I too see schools as an incubator for the community, and making that connection explicitly is part of the job.
Yeah, Jen, and I think we're wrapping up, but I want you to know that a couple of months ago, I bought a building on Main Street here in Freeville, and I am going to open a library. I really wanted to have a place where kids could go after school, do their homework, do puzzles and games, hang out. And that's really my mission.
My heart got very tingly when you were describing that. I need to learn more. And after we stop recording, I want to learn more about how I can help in that endeavor as well, because that feels all the good feels.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about providing a safe space where kids can just be themselves, hang out, do what they want. And adults will be around. Like I'll be there, other adults will be there. And I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited.
Yes. And what a beautiful full circle.
Yeah, totally.
I love it. Amy, thank you so much for your time and your talents and for just sharing your expertise with me and with the Take Notes audience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen.
So if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and tell a friend. And I will also make sure that I link all of the things that Amy has, for example, her books and Wait, Don't Tell Me, as well as the podcast episode that we kept referring to, because that's important for you to listen to also. And we'll see you next time on Take Notes.
Incredible, right? Together, we can revolutionize the face of education. It's all possible, and it's all here for you right now. Let's keep the conversation going at Empowered Educator Faculty Room on Facebook.